like life over. That's how I felt. And the way I looked, the way I felt, the way I talked, it reflected all of that. I was really going through a lot. And so you can make it through this. I am proof of that. Hello and welcome back to another episode of Sacred Sunday. So today we are going to be talking about grief. And that is something that I personally have gone through many times in many different ways in my life. So I thought that, especially with everything that's been going on as far as people losing their homes all of a sudden at the start of the year, to fires. And then I also recently lost, it was a friend of my mom's, but this is somebody who I grew up with, who was always around. Him and my mom worked together. And so I had to say goodbye to him as well this month of January. So I thought that maybe now more than ever, a video like this would be, relevant and necessary to make, just because grief is a big part of everyone's life. At some point in time or another, you might lose a job, or, you might lose a loved one. Women have miscarriages. There are so many things that cause you to grieve. Losing your home. My dad, his house caught fire. Trying to think of what year this was. It was years back, probably 2015, 2016, and it was devastating for him. And so when we think about loss and we think about devastation, that can come in many forms. Some people are grieving relationships, like the person is not gone, but you don't talk to them anymore. You won't talk to them anymore. And there's a grieving process that takes place when you remove yourself from someone else's life, or vice versa. So, like I said, I think that this is a good subject to discuss today. I know that it is painful to even think about talking about it, especially depending on what stage of grief that you're in. And so we're actually going to go over some of those stages, and hopefully I can give you some tools, share some tools with you that I've used in my own personal life to just, make the grief a lot better for myself and my children. For me and my children, we have had to grow through grief, and especially with losing loved ones. So I'm definitely going to share some of the tools that I've used to try to help myself to just grow and become a better person. In all honesty, I don't think that you'll ever just get over it per se. I think that you gather tools to help you to become a better person, and through the acceptance of your grief, then you're able to just utilize those tools at different points during your life. And so the first stage of grief that I'm going to talk about is denial. A lot of times when things first happen, like I said, any type of loss, no one can tell you how small or how big your loss is, because anytime that something causes you distress and dis-ease, then it's going to pretty much count as you grieving. So that first part is the denial. You're going to be feeling like you're in the twilight zone. That's how it felt for me. I felt like this wasn't real. This isn't happening. I really felt numb, lost. And a lot of it was just me being quiet and processing. And through the process, you're trying to convince yourself that this didn't happen to you. And that's heavy because now your mind is starting to play tricks on you as far as everything that has happened during this process. And so I'm trying to go back into the way that I really felt. I can only say that it really felt like I was in a whole nother place. Like nothing around me made sense at the time. And when nothing around you makes sense, you start trying to make sense of everything. So I became super analytical. And then beyond that, I became super angry. And I even became angry. So in the situation where I lost my husband, I became very angry with him at some point during my grief because it was more so like, how could you leave me? How could this happen? We made all of these plans. And I was upset because all of the plans and everything that we had told each other, you know, it basically felt like a lie, even though, of course, it wasn't his fault that he passed away. But in my own experience, and just once I got through the fact of like, this is actually happening, then I had to go through the fact of like, why is this happening to me? Why do I have to go through this? So I was really angry. I was angry that he had to go through it. And then I didn't really have the support that I thought I would have whenever he passed away. So it was it's going to be eye-opening, number one, because when you actually go through like a deep loss, like the loss of a husband, then you find out like who's really there for you and who's not. And a lot of times people, they really don't know what to say to you. They're afraid to say the wrong things. And I think that's the biggest thing with grief that you need to understand is that, especially when you lose a person, like, don't have too many expectations of people, because a lot of times people are going to be afraid to say anything because they don't know what to say and they don't want to say the wrong thing. And when people would say stuff to me, a lot of times they would say the wrong things because they couldn't put themselves in my shoes. And some people didn't even have enough empathy for me at the time, I guess because I was such a young mother and a young wife, that they didn't really give me the same regard as somebody that might have been married for like 30, 40 years and lost somebody. You know, I got disrespected a lot within the process. So my grieving process through that was really hard because I did not have a lot of community support. I had to go out to get support. But I'm going to get back to that. Because I've also lost my mother and my grandmother. I've lost jobs. Like I said, my dad, he lost all his stuff in a house fire. So, baby, I know this all too well. I wish I didn't. I wish I didn't know enough about this to be sitting here talking to you. But I really do hope that by seeing me sitting here talking today, that you can see that you can make it through it. Because if you would have seen me back in 2009, I was not the same person. I was ruined, child. Like, life over. That's how I felt. And the way I looked, the way I felt, the way I talked, it reflected all of that. I was really going through a lot. And so you can make it through this. I am proof of that. And so let's keep going through these stages, and we're going to talk about how you can get to the point of trying to recover and heal. And so also, another stage after anger is depression. And sometimes you have anxiety as well as depression. And sometimes that depression looks like being quiet. You might not really be saying too much. You might not talk too much to too many people. It might look like overwhelming emotions. You might just bust out crying in random places. You might be standing in the grocery store crying, or you might get in your car, you driving around having a good day, and then you just stop at a stoplight and you're just crying. Um, the depression for me took over to where I just didn't want to do anything. I didn't want to clean up. I didn't want to do anything. And then I started like toxic habits. I would smoke, I would drink, I would try to go out to like get my mind off of things. And that wasn't helping me at all. Like, it was keeping me more so in a woe is me mindset, because like working helped because I had to go to work to take care of my children. So that helped me to focus on something else. Even when my mom passed away, having things to do, going on vacations, I think by the time she passed away, I actually was much better at knowing how to deal with great grief, like a great loss, because my husband was a really, really big loss. So by the time my mom passed away, I was in a much better headspace, and I had some tools to know what to do for myself. But when he passed away, I was a hot mess. And so, not wanting to clean up, not wanting to be organized, like just disorganized. It's not even like I didn't want to. It was just I couldn't. Like, my mind was trying to wrap itself around what was going on, and then I had to keep going because I had children. So it's like, you have this and this and this and so many responsibilities, so you can't just quit. So you really feel defeated. I felt completely defeated. I felt alone a lot, even though I did have friends that would come and like sit with me and try to talk to me and like be around me. It just, it wasn't the support, because they didn't really know what to do. But it wasn't really like the support that now that what I know, how I could support someone, is a little bit different. Because, like I said, people are coming to keep you company and they're talking to you, but there's so much that's going through your mind, so much that you're trying to deal with and put together. And sometimes my friend would come and help me clean up, which that helps a lot. Like, if somebody is really going through a lot mentally, like, helping them to get organized is wonderful. Helping them with household chores that they normally would do, that you see that they're not doing, that's what helps them more. Like cooking for your loved one, or inviting them over for a meal, inviting them to your space, where your space might be a little bit more uplifting. Healthy things that a person can do in healthy environments, that's not going to remind them so much of what they lost. And even in me saying that, like, you will go to many places and have many experiences with many people that will remind you of just that. It will remind you of everything that you lost. But you have to have a positive outlook on those things. Like, try not to let it depress you so much, because depression is all encompassing. And if you allow it to, it will really grab you, take you, and not let you go. And so I had to fight for my life when I was depressed, because I had all type of thoughts, and the type of thoughts that are not conducive to having an abundant life, to living abundantly. I had no desire to do that, if you know what I mean. And so I really had to pray my way out of depression. And one thing about God, God will show up for you when you are all by yourself, when you feel like you are completely alone and there is nothing else there. Peace will overcome your body. And that peace is a universal peace. It's a godly peace. It's an omnipotent peace, because that peace for me, it came out of nowhere. And I know that was God. I know that was my angels. I know that was my ancestors loving on me, because in those moments, I couldn't even fathom peace. I couldn't even find a way out of my own mental chaos. So I thank God for those moments of prayer. I thank God for the times that I couldn't pray, that spirit came and sat with me and kept me, because that is really what pushed me through. I also went to church. And during the process of church, now that was a catch-22, because I would go to church and I would listen to sermons and I would cry, 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 which was a wonderful release. But I also needed to get counseling. And so I went twice. I met these pastors at the Potter's house, but they had like a smaller church outside of that church. And it was on a random night. I think it was like a Wednesday night. And maybe that's where they had Bible study. But I decided to go, and I met this pastor and his wife. And I talked to them twice. And they really kind of helped me with an outlook, because they had experienced the loss of, I believe, children. Like I don't know if it was a pregnancy. I can't really remember clearly, but they were talking to me about that. And I just feel like God aligned them with me at that time, just so I could know that I'm not alone in the way that I feel. So going to counseling and having someone to talk to is very helpful. Having someone to talk to who has experienced the type of grief that you're going through, that's helpful as well. Making sure you align yourself with people that have been in your situation and have overcome your situation is very important, because you have community support, and they're going to support you because they know what it's like. So also during this process, one thing that I really had to do with myself is I had to stop saying, why me? And I had to turn that into, why not me? I realized that so many people all across the world, globally, go through the worst things. They go through bombings, they go through robberies, they go through mass destruction of their areas, they go through fires, forest fires, volcano eruptions, earthquakes, tsunamis. You name it, people have gone through it. And so when I stopped thinking about why me and start thinking about what about me is any different than anybody else. Like, we all go through things. We all have to face some type of ending. And that is a part of the circle of life. Like, we come into this existence and we're only here for a small limited time, and then we leave this existence. That's why we should live our life to the fullest, because you never know what's going to happen to you. And so when I recognized that, that kind of helped me to move into the acceptance stage. But before then, I was in a bargaining stage of, well, what if? What if this never happened? What if we never did this? What if, I could just go back to the past and, God, please just make this not real. And, those are your prayers. But once you get out of that why me and you start to say, why not me? Then you understand that, yeah, people go through devastating losses. Now, I'm one of those people that has grown through this loss. But at the time, I was one of the people that had to go through the loss of my husband, that had to go through the loss of my mother, that had to go through switching my career and going what I felt like at the time was backwards. But it wasn't. It was just something that was necessary at the time for my personal growth and for my journey. So once you get past all of those things, now you're ready to accept what happened to you. And acceptance is key to moving forward in anything. Remember, we talked about acceptance in the forgiveness video when it came down to forgiving yourself, acceptance and accountability. So once you come to a point of really accepting what happened to you and coming to terms with whatever loss that was, then you need to adapt a new normal, a new life. This is a totally new you. You can't go back to the old you at this point because you have been changed. Loss, so great, it transforms you. And it was supposed to. It was supposed to transform your way of thinking. It was supposed to transform you spiritually. It's supposed to transform you. You get a chance to choose how it's going to transform you. Is it going to transform you in a negative way? And are you going to continue to spiral down? Or are you going to stop, accept, and lift yourself up and just know that, like, yeah, you're different. Yeah, that piece of you is missing. Yeah, you might be a little broken, but broken things can be repaired, and so can you. So now you just need to begin to move forward. And in moving forward, you're going to integrate that loss into your life, but also you're going to pick up those tools that we talked about. And so these different tools can be various. Meditation was very important for me. Meditation was a huge part of my personal transformation. And the way that I started meditating is they used to have a channel on satellite TV. And at the end of the channel, there were a bunch of music channels. And so one day I was listening to like these nature sounds, and I got on the floor and I started stretching and I started taking deep breaths and breathing. And that was my own personal introduction to meditation. And then I started discovering more and more about meditation and deep breathing exercises and Reiki healing. And the more that I grew in my knowledge of these things and my practices of these things, the better that makes me. I mean, y'all can't tell you now how many times during the day I had to stop and just take a deep breath. Because life can get overwhelming at times. And it can be any particular time that you're trying to move about your day and something crazy happens. So meditation is a beautiful practice. Exercising, yoga, excuse me, bless me. But those things are something that can help you. Different cultures also have different things that they do in regards to loss, especially when it comes down to people. So African traditions, they typically celebrate life, and they don't mourn their loved ones. Well, they do, but because I can't say that nobody mourns their loved ones, but a lot of people in the African tradition will more so have a celebration of life. When my mom passed away, I had a celebration of life for her. So I wouldn't say just in the African tradition, but I mean, these are things that I looked up as far as different cultures. But I know for sure in like Ifa, for instance, they do ancestor altars. So you could totally create an altar for your ancestors. You could place their pictures there. You could put flowers there. In other cultures, I believe in Buddhist cultures, they honor their ancestors with flowers. I believe that's what the flowers mean. Like, when you go to some of those villas and houses, they'll have like the orange marigold flowers all in the water, just sitting. Usually when you go to temples, you see a lot of those flowers as well, and people will burn incense also. So it's definitely a way of cleansing the energy, but also I feel like that's what's honoring their ancestors. So different cultures do different things. In American culture, a lot of people might say, hey, go get therapy, go to church, go, to some groups, some counseling groups, because there are definitely groups for grief. When my mom had cancer and she passed away, the hospice, I believe it was called Faith Presbyterian, they actually provided group therapy and activities for myself and the kids to be able to go to. I'm trying to think how often we did that. I feel like we did it like 3 times. And they also provided activities before my mom passed away that really helped us to have things that we could hold on to. Like they made a teddy bear out of her clothes, and they did cast of her hands, and did like hand statues where she was holding hands with the boys. So having those type of things mean a whole lot. I know also there are some funeral homes that will make you mementos for your loved ones. So I actually have a necklace with my mother's fingerprint on it, and it has her name and her date of birth on the back. And then I have another diamond heart that my dad gave me, and I put those two things together and I wear it all the time. So having that type of thing can help you. Having mementos. Is that I think that's what they call them. Momentums. But having something that you can hold in your hand will help you to, I don't want to use the word get over, because it's not something that you're going to get over, but it'll help you to deal with it, like live with it better. I know as far as the people who lost their homes in the fire, maybe going back to the home after things have calmed down some and you're able to just collect the trinket. Maybe there's something there that didn't burn or didn't catch fire, or just a piece of the home that you can keep as something to remember your house by, as something to remember that instant, because of course it's something that changed you. Sometimes maybe you need to do other ceremonies and rituals that will assist you. Journaling is always good. We talked about burn ceremonies before. These things can help to allow you to release your energy and your feelings towards the situation. Every time that there's birthdays or holidays, or even like I said, with people that have lost their homes in the fire, maybe the anniversary of when you moved into that home, you can start lighting candles for that day. You can light candles at any time during your grieving process, and you can use the different color candles to help to bring energy to you. So you can use pink candles to draw in the energy of love. You can use white candles to purify your energy. You can use home blessing candles to just bless the space that you're in. So sometimes those candles and lighting those things, it helps to just give an ambiance, give recognition, because sometimes that's what we really want, is to recognize that this thing took place, that this thing occurred. I know a lot of times when people have miscarriages, people don't want to talk about it. People don't reverence those children, but you can always light a candle or collect a trinket, have a ring, or make a bracelet that is something that is for you to remember that person or that incident by, that will help you to grow, that like, hey, you know what, this is a part of me now, and I carry this with me. And then sometimes when you get to the point of real growth and change, you can discard of that. Maybe you'll be ready to say, you know what, I've grown to a point where I don't have to wear this anymore, and then you can put that down. So I'm also going to include a grief guide in this video, because I feel like this subject is really deep, and it has a lot of different layers to it. So this video is really just an intro to the stages of grief and a few tips on what I did to try to help my life when I was growing through that grieving process. And time again, we find ourselves in moments where we have losses that affect our way of life, that affect the way that we think, affect the way that we move, and the way that we go forward, especially when things first happen. So I want you to know that you are not alone in your journey. If you want to, please come to Instagram at LexLuniverse. Send me a direct message. I'll be happy to talk to you. I will be happy to point you in a deeper direction as far as the resources that I was able to use, I also have written an ebook. I've been trying to put books and material with these videos, because even after the video is long gone, then those tools that is in these books or in the handout, pamphlets, PDFs, whatever, that is stuff that you can always go back to for a reference. So I definitely have a lot more information in those things. And then I might come back and actually do a story time about specific incidences that I've gone through, because the loss of my husband, like, that almost ruined my whole life. Like, that was the craziest thing that I've ever been through. But I thank God for the experience, because I don't think I would have been able to handle the loss of my mom as well if I wouldn't have already lost my husband. So that incident really set me up in my life to have a whole new outlook on things. And even with my mom's death, having a whole new outlook on how I want to live my life and how I want to live a full life. And even now, like, the things that I go through or grow through, because I love to say that, because that's what it is growth. Like, those things are shaping and molding me, and I'm trying my best to allow those things to shape and mold me into a better person. I can't say that I've always did the best things and I've always reacted in the best ways, because I haven't. But the more that I learn, the more that I try and don't give up, the better I see myself being. And with God, you can do anything. No one, no person, no nothing can come and do anything to you, stop you from having nothing. You know what I mean? Like, God got you. We just have to be in a space of acceptance and understanding, especially about nature, because the nature of life is a cycle. So when we can really truly understand how that cycle works and how it's working for us and not against us, then we can start to really see some significant changes and be more involved. I think sometimes we can be oblivious to somebody else's pain because we're not in that same situation. And then when you get into a similar situation, you can only imagine the pain that that person felt or carried, or how they were able to even do it. So I have a lot of stories on grief, and so I might do some story times. I definitely got to get a new SD card so that I can do longer videos, but I really hope that you enjoyed this one. Make sure that you drop your comments below. Share this with some of your friends and your family members that need to get the message. And make sure you take advantage of the resources in the link, because you know I did my research. You know I got some good resources for you. And so please, 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 whatever you do, do not go through what you're dealing with alone. Don't even try to. Like, it's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to find groups. It's okay to reach out. Like I said, reach out to me and I'll be here. And I'll see you next Sunday. Peace.